And you can hear me? Very good. Sanna wants to know who's here. She's giving me looks. It's yesterday, it's Ola and Sanna. Very good. Okay. See to it that you sit comfortably and close your eyes. Just recognize what is here. You might think of this recognition as just awareness moving to different parts. You recognize the body. You're attentive of thoughts. But in this attentiveness, in this awareness, that on the surface seems like it's aware of objects, holds a much vaster stillness. A watchfulness that is not a state. But it's still an aspect of you. Without the content of the world, without things to be conscious of, it is still here. It is pure awareness itself. It's not really a thing that you find in meditation. It is the aspect that everything comes from. And whatever you may think that you are, whatever belief you hold about yourself, that you're lost or wise, that you're better or worse. They're just beliefs that come and go. They always happen with this awareness as a background. That awareness is changeless. It does not have a good or a bad day. It is never better or worse than others. It cannot be wounded and needs healing. It just is. The formed identity and the ego might not like these aspects. It might like certain aspects of it. It likes to pick and choose. The identified ego likes the freedom, but not the infinite spaciousness. It likes the moment of contentment, but not the complete surrender. Because to the identified self, it means that it will be lost. An identity thrives on continuation. It just wants to play as a broken record, loops time and time again, same things, same comfort. This awareness, this beingness itself, it's always new, always fresh. And to the ego, it's chaos. So the ego resists. You want to be kept relevant. The identified part might feel like, this is my life. This identity is my life, even though I suffer the idea of being a victim. I suffer my feelings and my sense of being separate. It feels comfort when other people confirm that sense of duality, of separateness. It might feel comfortable in there being a we and them. But it also always suffers that. It feels not content, dissatisfied, longing to come home. This is the paradox of life. The separate ego trying to be whole and does not understand that it cannot follow. It cannot come with into that wholeness. And even though it resists and struggles and tries and keeps and all this, awareness itself is unavoidable. Spirituality is unavoidable. It might seem on the surface like a cultural phenomenon that you can slap on your life as a thin veil. But if you look deeply, you notice that that is the thing that holds everything. As soon as you let go, you always come to this deep stillness of awareness. When you recognize it at first, it's strange. It feels unintuitive. In the relative, it feels like the world is always rewarding you for effort, for trying. And when it comes to meditation, it just shows that you can just be as you are, and the acceptance of that is all. And you realize that you are given everything. So much beauty. The whole sense of purpose and clarity, everything is in it, even if it's not personal. The impersonal beauty of things, impersonal intimacy with everything. Freedom in this moment from not having to become anything. And you notice things like in all your struggles, in all your ways of trying to live your life, in all the effort, there's a lack of trust. At first you might not know how to relax, how to allow this moment to happen. But as you go into it, it becomes clear. The more spacious the mind is, the more life will show you. You begin to see the difference between the voice of the identified mind and the voice of beingness. You notice that the qualities are so different. But for most people, the voice of beingness is just drowned out by the constant noise of the identified mind. It's more subtle. You can open your eyes, move your body if you need to. Stretch out your limbs. I met a man this week that reminded me that that spirituality is so universal. He had survived very aggressive cancer. And he said to me, they said to me 3.5 years ago that I have 3 weeks left to live. I'm 3.5 years later, and now he was almost completely cancer-free. And he said, I don't take anything for granted anymore. I cherish every meeting I have. He had work where he repaired people's watches. And sometimes the watch didn't work perfectly, so people came back and were angry at him. And he said, even when they're angry, I can enjoy it. I just enjoy the interaction. I feel so much love for them, so much gratitude. Even if I notice they're upset. He had no spiritual background. He had never dealt with meditation in any way. He was just with what is. His acceptance was deep because he didn't believe in time, because it had been taken away from him. And when you say that spirituality is practical, it is that. We talk about it directly here, but it is just everywhere, and it has the same qualities. He didn't feel gratitude because some tradition told him to be grateful. He felt gratitude because he felt like he had no choice. That was what life was now. I feel like his story matters because people think it's so easy to think that it is a thing, that it is a cultural thing and something that you have to do. And it's so easy to think, you meet a teacher that has practiced for many years and you think, when I have also practiced for that many years, I will become something. And we have no idea what is a good and a bad life. Because as this man, you could say that it is a terrible life to have terminal cancer. And he seemed to be in his 30s, perhaps. But for him it changed everything. So maybe it's the most beautiful thing that happened to him. Life is strange like that. And the ideas that we have about what spirituality is going to do for us changes. Or we might like the idea of that we have a very high spiritual goal for enlightenment or completely freedom from the ego. But the motivation is really just to feel good. And all these things are fine. But they can be difficult to accept. Spirituality, in a sense, is so simple. But our ideas and our identity makes it complicated. We get lost so easily. We hear about different concepts in spirituality, different obstacles. People who completely refuse the idea of, they say that all the talk about enlightenment and getting free of the ego is just total utopian nonsense. And they say it's just spiritual bypassing all of that. And then the opposite becomes spiritual camping. They just put down their tent. Maybe they even build a house there on the path. They say it can do certain things, but it cannot really get rid of it. And then your belief is that. Or you will say that it takes lifetimes, or you can camp in whatever way. If you enjoy camping. And there's a balance of being grounded, not being in your ideas of the mind and not escaping into spirituality as an idea that it will solve all your problems. And in the same time, not be so rigid that you don't see the possibility of any opening in spirituality. It's so easy to just believe something. And sometimes you have to just come to a very clear point to notice where you're at and what you're doing. You might feel like you're hitting a wall, but you don't really know what the wall is. Why is it stopping here? I don't know. And my teacher says if I have any questions, I can ask them, but I don't know the question. I just feel stuck. So what do? You stay with your stuckness for a while. You get frustrated by your stuckness. You get really tired of it. You try to think what the question is that you're going to ask that's going to solve this stuckness. But it never comes. It just feels stuck. And you might notice in all your trying that maybe that is the problem. The idea of yourself on a spiritual path going forward. So you start to try to surrender. Also very difficult through the person. Impossible even. And maybe your efforts to try to surrender creates even more identity and you feel even more frustrated by the attempts. And you know that you somehow have to let go. You have to surrender, but you don't really know what it is. How do you do and not doing? You have to start to notice what is in the way. There is something that is being upheld. Identity, trying, effort, an idea. And this is the beauty of being stuck, that it can really show you. Because it's so easy that the mind says, that the ego says, that you just have to realize the next thing. That there is something to get. But it seems like the most difficult thing to see is that the behavior itself is what creates the stuckness. The idea of a person that is trying to get somewhere at a certain point. It's the obstacle itself. Is what creates duality. And as soon as that is noticed, there is an opening for that surrender to happen. But surrender is not an effort. It's the ceasing of things. It is staying as awareness to see the struggle and just observe it. See what the effort is. And through that seeing, see how it ceases. The spiritual identity might feel like you're somehow giving up. Or you're not trying hard enough or in the right way. But this is just ideas that comes from separation and the idea of getting somewhere. What is it to just be? It's a good question. And what is in the way of just being? What is the unnoticed behavior that is always trying? And the experience can seem so complicated in that, because as soon as you try to just stay as awareness, you're so easily going into identifying as that, as the one trying to stay aware. And you might hear that the mind should be quiet, and then you go into as the doer trying to make the mind quiet. And these things can be so subtle. Or if you feel like you're not doing anything at all, there's still a longing for something to happen. You're looking for an experience. You have the expectations. They can be so subtle. because the egoic mind loves to be part of it. And as soon as you move outside that space, there is no effort, and it just feels like it is, and it feels very natural. And as soon as the idea comes that you try to deepen that through some activity, you're again going into the doer, trying. If you only listen to these words as an intellectual instruction, they won't be very helpful. It will just mainly be confusing. But if it connects with you, if it becomes a reflection of that awareness in you, it's clear. It's simple. And it's only possible to remind you of it if you can recognize it. Otherwise, it's easy to misunderstand on every turn. So what makes this life precious? What makes a person go to gratitude instead of comparison, instead of expectations? You might say wisdom does that. And where does wisdom come from? It's often confused with knowledge or intelligence. but it belongs in none of those categories. Wisdom is just the ability to see life for what it is, instead of what you want it to be. To understand that the sattvic qualities of life makes life harmonious. And recognize when the qualities that is expressed in life is tamastic or rajastic, and what that does. Do you know about the gunas? The tamas, the raja, and the sattva? They heard about it a little bit, says Rebecca. Sanna knows and Ulla knows, right? Annika, you know about these things, yes. But we can talk about that a little bit. Because they're used in many ways, but usually with tamas you mean the qualities of avoidance, you could say. I say sometimes that I've seen you know the movie The Matrix. Have you seen that? Yes. And I say sometimes that I hear people that are both looking at this movie from a tamastic view, a rajastic, and a sattvic view. And that makes that movie very interesting, because from a tamastic view, the world is against you. It's a conspiracy against you. There are always forces that are controlling you, and we don't really know about it. This kind of paranoid worldview where everything is very dark and against you. This is very much the tamastic approach to it. And sometimes the Matrix is like a proof of that to some people. But and to the rajastic person, the doer, the one that feels like everything can be changed through doing, they say that the Matrix shows them that if you just investigate and if you just apply yourself enough, you can break through this. They're close to the tamastic view, but it's just like if you apply yourself, you can break the pattern of it. You can understand more of the world, and you can see through these things, and you can create something amazing from it. Yes?
Are you saying like rajastic, like Raja?
Like, yes. And when Sattvic people talk about the Matrix, they say that it's about that you can see through that the life itself is an illusion. That nothing was ever real. That the reality is spiritual, it's not material. And I just found it so interesting that I see all these three views on the same thing. And it's like they're watching three different movies, three different ways of looking at it. But most people move between these things. When you're in a very tamastic state, you're prone to just escape the things. You want to do things that distract you. I sometimes jokingly say it's like when you want to play video games and smoke weed. That is tamastic energy. And the Rajasic energy is very much that you are satisfied through doing. And often people who are much in the Tamastic energy, they look up to Rajasic qualities. They feel like they're just escaping and wasting their life, and they look up to people who are great entrepreneurs and great doers. And this is very much the Rajasic qualities. And usually when people is in the Rajasic energy for a long time, they have achieved a lot of things, they have been doing a lot of things, they notice that it does not satisfy them. So then the Rajasic person becomes interested in Sattvic qualities. This is very obvious. If you talk to people from very different backgrounds and different parts in their life and what they have been doing, these things are. And many people, for example, who have been very successful and feels like the success is fine, but it does not satisfy them. They want to work with charity. They want to do more with seva. They want to give back to the community. They start to talk about these things. And that is start to look up to Sattvic qualities. And then some people are just very naturally Sattvic. They don't ever feel like they have to prove themselves or escape that much. They just want to go into Sattvic qualities. But all these things are just a way to explain certain expressions of the human and how they move. And you might have all kinds of views on it, that the world is very Rajasic and blah, blah, blah. It's not Sattvic enough or blah, blah. But that is not really the point of it. It's not a philosophy system, or it's just a way of explaining these energies that are there. And Ramana said it beautiful. He said, yes, you move. People explain to him their lives and that they sometimes were very... trying to just distract themselves, and sometimes they were very ambitious, and sometimes they came into state of contentment, and there are parts of it. And he says, it all has to do what you do in your Sattvic state. How do you take care of that? Do you allow that to flower? Do you stay with it? Do you allow this spaciousness to be? Or do you try to distract yourself because you get afraid, or whatever happens in it? So for most people who take on some kind of spiritual path, they just these different parts just become much more pronounced. It gets much clearer that, okay, now there's again a very sattvic couple of days or hours or whatever it is, and to really just do the sadhana in that, invite emotions, take care of it. And when you feel like you have to prove something, you have to do something, maybe you have to go into that energy. And for some people, they really have to show themselves that they are worthy through that. So it's unavoidable also. They have to go through some rajasic tendencies. And usually it's both good if their dreams are fulfilled or crushed. It usually has good results on that. Because if they're fulfilled, it just shows that there is no fulfillment in it. And if it gets crushed, it means that it's no longer possible. So it's both a great way of surrendering. And some people just have a very, very much fire in their drive for that. And I think that that's also a natural way to explore. And there is a reflection in sattvic qualities that's also that the more your life becomes sattvic, the more you're just interested in sattvic qualities. You're not very interested in holding grudges or holding on to anything that feels sticky, or you're just not interested in it. However, even if there's a strong pull of people around you to talk about these things, or to take part in that kind of behavior, you will feel uninterested. And I think that this is what many people describe on their spiritual path, that they realize at a certain point that perhaps they have to leave their friend group, or they have to relate to them differently, and all these things can be scary, and also with family members and everyone that is in your close vicinity. And that is just because sattvic qualities takes over, so you get less interested in tamastic or rajasic qualities. But it's also the danger of talking about this is that it's so easy, can create an ideal. Instead of being with what is, you create an ideal that everyone should be more sattvic, and you start to have the idea that is the good thing. But the good thing is also to be with what is, to really be honest. If there is qualities in you that need to be realized somehow, and you have a very strong feeling with that, I say, go do that until there comes a point where it no longer serves its purpose. Did you want to ask anything, Ulla?
Yeah.
Take the microphone.
So, I think you said something in line with, according or not, about the rajasic quality. That if in specifically that one, I think that some people have to go and chase their dream or do something, achieve something, or, and that's just a natural thing in them, kind of.
Yes, for some people it seems like they cannot just sit with that and be all right. That there is some part of that needs to be expressed or realized, and they have to
so this is
explore that.
So this is what you have been saying to me a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. And then
we have talked about it.
Yeah, and that you can't really, like, some people can't really, like, yeah, you shouldn't avoid that, because then that's going back to the tamasic.
Yes, and it also can become so easily spiritual bypassing.
Yeah.
That you feel like you have your thing and you have something to prove, but that is not really important, because spirituality is the thing that is important. And then you hold it like an idea that is going to save you.
Yeah.
And this is what people usually refer to as spiritual bypassing.
So that could be an, what could you say, like an ego strategy to avoid being confronted, kind of.
Yes, and also because at a certain, the ego wants to just be relevant, so to the ego it doesn't care if you're stuck. It actually can kind of like that you're stuck, because then you will all the time relate to the ego. The freshness of the moment is the enemy of the ego. You understand? Change is the enemy of the ego, but change is unavoidable. That is the quality of life, is change. Everything in this will change.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And when we talk about these things, it feels like it is such a tightrope. It's so easy to take a stance somewhere and just get stuck with that. And to keep the openness of just being with it and not drawing any conclusions, because the conclusions, when they're drawn from ignorance, will always be wrong. And also that there is no need to draw that conclusion, to make it. It's just the ego that likes that that black and whiteness of things. It feels safe. To the ego it says, now I know. But if you observe your mind, you notice that it does not like that much. It doesn't like the openness of it, the unidentified, until it can really stay as it. It will struggle for it to become something until there is nothing more to hold on to. Then it can relax. And these unconscious ways is the way for the ego to stay relevant. Where the things that you're not aware of, what you take for granted. And for most people, they don't look at the identification of it. They just look at the world already through the lens of identification and what is happening to the person. There's no awareness of the becomer. Can I use that as a word? There's no awareness when the identification itself formulates. That is just taken for granted. Most people just call it me. And then the only looking happens in what you observe is happening to me. But there's no observation of the one, of the becomer, of the one who is identified with the experience, because that is just not seen. And if you just try to go to that one, the identified part in you, if you try to come back to the sense of I, it so quickly loses its grasp. At first it might seem just abstract to you, but it very quickly loses its grasp, because that is the blind spot. That is where you're not looking. And in this moment you can do it. You can just look at the idea of I. There is a sense of it. And it might have, in this moment, borrowed itself to certain things, to ideas, to the body, to whatever. And that will give the sense that I am that thing. But as all things, this can be observed. All the things that the idea of I can stick to and how it relates to this can be observed. And if you come back to the I, it will show that all these connections are temporary, and they're just coming and going. It is obvious if you wake up and come from deep sleep, the identification sometimes is not there. People say, I feel confused, I didn't even know where I am, all these kind of things. That is because the identification of it has not set in. Rumi puts it beautifully in this poem. He says, the breeze at the dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill. Where the two worlds touch, the door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. And this is what we do. As soon as we have a sadhana, as soon as we practice this, as soon as we get into the space of satsang, we come back into the space. Sometimes it feels like remembrance, sometimes it feels like it was always like this. And sometimes in your daily life, you might feel like almost like someone else. This is walking through the door of two worlds in a way. And it feels like when you're in this space of awareness, it feels like how this can never be forgotten. I can never lose this. It's so obvious. And tomorrow when you're at work, it's gone. Feels like you're someone else. But it's never gone. It's just that, as Rumi wrote, you don't go back to sleep. This is what happens. We just buy into the identified mind. We buy into the duality of thoughts, and if we again go back to sleep. And he also writes in the first line is, the breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. And to me it's just when also you go from the deep sleep into the waking state that there can be a gap. That is the secret. The secret is just silence. It's just not becoming. Being. And the qualities of awareness itself can be sometimes that you just have to question who this experience is for and who is this happening to. And you very quickly come back to the clarity of awareness. And at first you will be taken by it because it will feel big and it will feel very, very clear. But it just, and you might think that that itself, that state of feeling very connected to awareness, feels like a state. You don't realize that it is just that you're for a moment out of the trance of the mind. And since that for most people is normal, the identification with it and looking through the lens of that identification, with feelings, with thoughts, with beliefs, then that becomes normal. And we talk about states that are beyond that as spiritual states or awakening or all these things. But that is just normal. That is just what happens when you're not identified. And if we would be in a cultural context that would be more prevalent than the trance of the identified state, we will just call that the normal state. Now we call it the thing, but it's not the thing. There is so much space that comes with the non-identification. There's so much peace. There's so much gratitude, love, intimacy. Any questions today? Yes.
I have a question. Something that comes up now and then, like a kind of light curiosity. I appreciate the point you hold for allowing emotion and energy to move through the body. And when we are sitting here muted, I will more often than not ask Stephen's permission, or just let him know I'm going to be making a lot of noise now because something's moving. But sometimes I will be making noise, like like something like that, or stretching, because it feels like when I get more present in my body, then there's just this intuitive movement of there's just like a way or an expression, maybe you would say, that something wants to move, because whilst I've not been present, I've been holding tension. And sometimes, like, we were wanting to come to this retreat, and one of the things I was thinking is, oh, but how am I going to manage to really do my thing if I have to sit there and be quiet so I'm not disturbing anybody? And I have, I had a knee operation, I have some pain, so I can't sit, so I would need a back jack, but then I'm going to be all rolling my hips and making strange sounds. And so I'm curious for you, how do you practice or balance those things if you're in a group and trying to be silent? Like, I am curious how to navigate that, because I haven't been in these sorts of more silent, like a Vipassana retreat spaces. I haven't been in those for a long time now. I've been more in like, move your body, make sound, and like this offering meditation, right?
Yes.
So I would love to hear your perspective on these.
Yes. But we have to look at why these things are happening and why you're doing them. You're doing them because you can relax in them, and that becomes an expression of that.
But sometimes it doesn't even feel like I'm in a doing. It feels like...
Yes, because you're not, because you're relaxing. So that is just a way for you to let things out. Like most people, when they just... Maybe they really have struggled through the day, and when they come home and sit on the couch, they go like, oh, because that is just the sound of letting go that comes with that. It is a part of the expression of that. So I think that you will have, perhaps at first, you will have a lot of feeling that you want to make these sounds and do the things. But when you feel settled and you have relaxed into it and it feels spacious, I promise you, you have no problem being quiet and being with it.
I agree, and I feel like when I'm in my own space, that's the kind of natural process that my body goes through.
Yes.
Aren't then these sorts of meditative spaces kind of bypassing or not making space for that? In, like, if someone wants to just do that.
Okay, I can tell you from my own experience was like this, because as some of you know, I practiced Vipassana meditation for the first 8 years of my practice. And I did a lot of it, and I went on retreats and all that. And in that, I also felt quite limited, because it felt like you had to follow the rules, and they're very strict, and you have to be very silent, and you have to be in a very certain way. And as soon as I went on my first retreat, my first Vedanta retreat, which was with Mooji, a longer retreat, and there were no rules at all like that. It was a silent retreat, but it was not strict at all. It was not that you had to sit 10 hours a day or nothing like that. You could do whatever you like. You could walk all the time if you wanted to. and just come for the satsangs. You could do whatever you wanted. And to me, I felt like that made me so less tense, because I just felt I could just follow the naturalness of things. So now we will see when the next retreat happens, but if I'm doing retreats, that is what the kind of space that I want, that is very allowing, so that you really can relax in it, because too much rules makes people tense. Most people are already so afraid of not doing the right thing and being wrong in certain ways, and especially in spiritual context. So the space has to be very allowing of that. And of course, there has to be some restriction if you disturb others too much, and then you might be told to keep it down a little bit, because you notice that the group is not. But as much as possible, and that there is also, when I do a retreat, there will be the flexibility of, if I notice that the group is super restless, maybe we're not doing another meditation session, maybe we're dancing instead. So it also depends on, and I think that flexibility is very important in it. And the more you come to terms with your own sadhana, you can also do it from what is needed, not from what is perfect or what is whatever your idea of that is. So, but the dangers of that is always that if it's too free, it's so easy to just go into distracting yourself.
Right.
Because you have a lot of space to distract yourself, because you can do whatever you want. So you go into the tendencies of that. So it's always a balance of those things. And I also saw it on these retreats, that on the strict retreats, then everyone is doing everything perfectly. And on the where there were not that much rules, we were at like a resort kind of place, and some people were just swimming in the pool, lying sunbathing in silence. and you felt like okay, but are you really taking part of the silent retreat, or are you just distracting yourself looking at other people in their swimming trunks or bikinis and swimming in the pool? So there's if it's too strict, it can become very tense. If it's too loose, no one is doing the sadhana, because they're all just distracting themselves. So it is to keep that balance is difficult, and it has to be, if it's going to be really good, it has to be customized to the participants, I feel like. But as with all sadhana, they are the same hindrance. If your sadhana is too loose, you say that everything is my sadhana. It is so easy to go into just distracting yourself with things, and there's not really much sadhana happening. And if you're too strict, you just get tense, and you just feel like you're always behind all these kind of.
I think the dichotomy I'm making in my mind still is, when I'm in like a group setting and I'm hearing teachings or words that is really resonating with my heart or my body, I'll get a lot of like air through me, and I will be like like weeping, or it can be like a lot of noise or disruption. It can feel like giving birth or something.
Yes.
Like you're just like, something is moving, and then if I'm stopping it, it's to respect the silence of the space. It's these times when I'm very curious about the balance there, and I'm curious if there is a benefit ever in those types of situations to not letting that expression just erupt.
Yes, the thing is that it can also be an ego thing, that it feels like this is what a spiritual experience is. Do you understand? And that part gets just propelled by it. This is what's happening to me, and it becomes... It can be very in the subconscious, but a feeling that I have to somehow express that I am spiritual through this behavior. And it's just good things to be aware of. I'm not saying that it has to be like that in your case, but it just said that there is always when it comes to these expressive things, it can easily become to demonstrate that, and also to yourself, that something spiritual is really happening to me now, that it is a big event. And when you're very honest with those things, they might just go away.
Yes, I know this one. Like if I would start shaking, then I'd be like, oh, I'm shaking. It must be a spiritual experience. And then it just feels ridiculous, or it's like gets a loop.
Yes.
And then it will go away in the presence. And sometimes it's not like that.
Yes,
yeah.
And it is also tell that, especially if you have a tendency to like that it's happening, then you understand, because if you're just embarrassed about it, it's obvious that it's just a thing that is happening, or okay, why is it just comes out somehow. But if you like it, then there is very much the ego has some. Oh, it likes the demonstration of it, or what it...
Thank you. That really lands for the part who is questioning. This is a good question to ask in those moments. Do I like this?
Yes.
Thank you.
And it can be very important to just express sometimes. You also asked about, like, should I hold back? But and that is very difficult to answer, because it depends on what you're holding back. If you're just cutting off your ego, trying to prove to yourself and others that there is a spiritual thing happening, if you cut that off. But sometimes it's just that the energy moves and the body starts to shake, or... And all these things can very much happen, but usually, if you're not, as I said, if you're not into them, you might come small bursts of the embarrassment that your body is strange, or you're making strange sounds, and not so much that you like it.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Very good. So let's sing a little bit, if there is no more questions. Jai Jai Shri Radhe, 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 Jai Jai Shri Radhe. May everyone find happiness. May everyone realize that they are the expression of pure awareness. And may everyone see beyond the veil of identity and into the clarity of this moment. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.